The late afternoon sun cast long golden shadows across the rolling hills of the English countryside, painting the stone walls of Mr. Alistair Finch's estate with a warm glow. Alistair, a man of quiet reserve and meticulous habits, was not one for grand gestures. His life was a carefully cultivated garden of order, a punctual morning constitutional, a predictable rotation of books from his extensive library, and a deep, abiding love for his prize-winning roses. It was a life he was perfectly content with, until Miss Eleanor Vance arrived. Eleanor, the new governess for his younger sister, was a whirlwind of delightful chaos. She wore boots caked with mud from her explorations, her hair was often adorned with wild flowers she had picked, and she possessed a laugh that could make even the most stubborn of his prize-winning roses bloom brighter. Alistair, watching her from the window of his study, felt his perfectly ordered world begin to tilt on its axis. He found himself inventing reasons to be in the garden at the same time as her, pretending to inspect his roses while stealing glances at her as she taught his sister how to identify different bird songs. He would linger in the library hoping she would come in search of a book, just so he could hear her voice discussing literature with an enthusiasm that was both infectious and deeply unsettling to his composed nature. One brisk autumn evening, a storm rolled in. A tempest of wind and rain that rattled the windows and shook the very foundations of the old house. The fire in the great hall was the only comfort, and Alistair found himself sitting opposite Eleanor, both of them lost in the crackling warmth. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was a comfortable shared space. Eleanor, her face lit by the firelight, looked up and saw him watching her. A gentle smile touched her lips. "Mr. Finch," she said, her voice soft and melodious, "you look as though you are planning a campaign against a particularly rebellious weed." Alistair, uncharacteristically, laughed. "Not a weed, Miss Vance. A rose. It refuses to bloom. I've tried everything. I've read every book on cultivation. I've adjusted its soil. I've spoken to it gently." He shook his head in mock defeat. "Nothing seems to work." Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes twinkling. "Perhaps," she said. "It simply needs a different kind of attention." She rose from her chair and to his astonishment she began to sing. Her voice was not that of a professional singer, but it was pure and filled with a simple joy. It was a silly little folk song about a lazy caterpillar and a grumpy hedgehog, and she sang it with all the earnestness of a child. Alistair felt his heart, so long a silent, well-ordered chamber, begin to thrum a new, erratic rhythm. He didn't understand the song, but he understood the sentiment behind it. It was whimsical, it was unplanned, and it was entirely, wonderfully, her. The next morning the storm had passed. Alistair walked to the rose garden, a sense of quiet anticipation in his chest. There, in the very spot where he had lamented his stubborn rose, was a single perfect bloom, a deep crimson red. He knelt down, touching the delicate petals. As he stood up, he saw Eleanor standing at the edge of the garden, a small, knowing smile on her face. He walked toward her, his heart beating a steady, certain rhythm now. He didn't have a grand speech prepared, he didn't have a poem. He only had the truth. "It seems," he said, his voice a little softer than usual, "that some things in life are not meant to be cultivated with a book. They are meant to be cherished with a song." Eleanor's smile widened, and in that moment, under the clear English sky, Alistair knew that his carefully ordered life had found its most beautiful and unpredictable bloom.